Good morning. This is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direction. I'm here working on my Alaska hat. And I ran across this new technique. It's called Ladder Back Jacquard. And it's a great way for dealing with floats when you're doing color work, such as this beautiful pattern. Let's see if I can show you the front of it. This is the Alaska hat. Can you see it? It's so pretty. I love it. This pattern, I'm sure we're going to provide a link for you. It's by Camille Discoto. Maybe I crucified that name. Anyway, it is a great pattern. It's totally fun. It uses one skein of the long color change yarn in fingering weight, and then it uses one skein of a solid color for your trees. And it's totally cool. I love this. But when I was doing my actual pattern, and you get up here toward the top, you have long areas of, one color. And then, so you would have to interlock your floats, right? Or otherwise you would have these big, long strands going across, and you could possibly get your fingers stuck in them. Or, it just would not be ideal to have those super long floats. So then we interlock our floats, and sometimes people, when they do color work, they can see where you interlock the floats from the front side of your work. So in order to prevent bunching or any visible telltale sign of that interlocking of floats, you can use this technique. And basically what it is that every 3 to 5 stitches or so, you're going to be doing one stitch, and it is pretty much the equivalent of double knitting, one stitch, and then you leave the strands in between. And let me kind of show you what this looks like. I found this picture on Pinterest, and you can see this multicolored yarn wasn't ideal, but if you look right here, these ladders right here, that's the Ladder Back Jacquard. And it is a cool technique. I had never seen it before. I'm like, I am so excited to be able to try this. And so the Alaska hat provides the perfect opportunity to actually try the technique. Now, as we're going along, don't forget to let us know where you're from, and maybe you can let us know what you're working on. And if you do, please provide the pattern, because we all like to know what the patterns are and where to get them if possible. And then you'll be entered to win. Every week we give away a little prize. So for this last week, it was for these 2 colors of Pima 100, and you guys chose the wine and this nice bone color. And I was using it to make placemats last week. So for this week, I was thinking that I would use this beautiful Dos Tiros, and I was feeling in the bins for the black colorway, and it is so soft. It's just phenomenally soft. So sometimes, when we have the different colorways, they use different products to actually dye the color that they're going to be using. And sometimes the dyes are harsher than others. For maybe like the dyes that are required for a red yarn might be a little harder on the yarn than maybe for a blue. So you might find your blue yarn is just a tad bit softer. But this black color is so soft. I would think that if they had to saturate the color to make it black, that it would actually be not quite as soft. But so not true. This Dos Tiros, which is 50 alpaca, 50 merino wool, is super soft, and I am so enjoying using it. So, and this other colorway that I thought maybe we could offer as a prize as well. So you guys have to help me choose, because next week we're either going to give them a black, or we're going to give them Anniversario, which is a nice multicolored yarn in the Dos Tiros. I love this yarn. So you guys let us know, and we can give it to one of these skeins, the black, the Anniversario, whichever one you decide, we will send out to our person for the prize for next week. And if you are a winner, all you have to do is contact customer service at Alpaca Direct, and you give us your address, and we ship it right out in the mail to you, so you can try out the yarn and enjoy it as much as I am. So for this Alaska hat, I'm using the Dos Tiros in the black colorway, and I'm using Stark 6, both of which This is like the Zauber ball that we normally carry, but it's a sport weight. And the Dos Tiros is also a sport weight. Well, here was my thing. I had a dilemma because you know how I love alpaca hats, right? So I was looking for a black yarn in fingering weight that was alpaca. And of course, I couldn't find any. So I found this sport weight. I'm like, okay, I'll make that work. And then I paired it with this wonderful Stark 6 because it has the long color changes and it's going to be beautiful for this hat. Now, mind you, I will probably be able to make 2 hats with the Stark 6. And if I had purchased 2 skeins of the Dos Tijeras and 1 skein of the Stark 6, I bet you anything I could either do 2 hats or, you know, a hat, mittens, whatever, because there's going to be a lot of yarn left over on this. So I'm excited about using it. And what I was going for is because the Alaska hat, to me, it kind of looks like a sunset in the background. So I kind of like those deep red colors with blue because to me, they're kind of indicative of that setting sun sky. And so I'm really having fun with this. Now, I started my hat last night, so I didn't get terribly far. And I also wanted to stop when I started the Ladder Back Jacquard so you could see how you actually start it. So I am going to...
There's a question for you. So,
sure.
So the black, some of the people said maybe it was from a black sheep. Do you think maybe it didn't have to be dyed, or what do you think?
I think this was dyed. It is so black that I think that I'm not sure that you could get a black, this black, without having it dyed. Some people, when they use, some companies, when they dye the yarn, they use natural products to dye it, but even the natural products can sometimes be harsh on the fibers themselves. And so, you know, some people will say, well, my yarn doesn't feel as soft as your yarn. And it's like, well, do you have the blue skein in your hand, or do you have a different color? Because the colors that or the products that they use to dye each color can affect that fiber of that yarn differently. So it's always something to keep in mind. But I'm telling you, this black yarn is heavenly. I'm totally loving it. So I wanted to come over here and show you just a little bit about this Ladder Back Jacquard because you can use it in color work. And it's just another option for you. If you're having problems with your color work where you have your interlocking floats, and on the front side, you can see some bumpiness where you can just see like kind of like a halo image of that yarn showing through, then you could try this technique and maybe it will help you. So here I am, I'm over here. Let me just show you. I have all these things on my hat and I want to show you what they mean. So the little stitch markers, for the pattern, it's a 24 stitch repeat. So I have the little tiny markers for each 24 stitches. And then I put in a locking stitch marker at the beginning of my round because I get so excited about doing the charts that I'll go right past the beginning of the round mark. And sometimes I don't see, you know, I might have more than one pink stitch marker on my actual project. And so having a pink one at the beginning of the round didn't quite stop me from knitting too fast. So let's see if I can find, so here's my pattern. And I arbitrarily decided that I was going to start doing my ladder back on round number 16. So I started, right, I'm almost at the end of the round. Do you see it where I started over here? And basically what you do is I would work 3 stitches in my multicolor, which is the white squares. And then on the 4th stitch, I am going to go ahead and do a lifted increase and make 1 stitch that's going to be the ladder back stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and work 2 more stitches in white. So this doesn't actually suck up a stitch. It's just where I created an extra stitch so that I can do that 1 stitch in double knitting or that same technique. So let's see if we can. I had already started this one here, so I kind of want to go back and see if I can show you that so you can see what I'm doing here. So we'll take that out.
So what are you doing here?
I'm just going back so I can go where that one increase was. Oh, and I also wanted to talk to you about, one second. This one do you see how that nice little knit stitch became not a knit stitch? Donk. There we go. All right.
Use the Stark 6 you used on the, remember on one of the knit clubs.
Yes, and I used it on doing the night shift too. So here I am. This is the lifted increase from right there. So here I am. Let me show you. Right here is the beginning of the round. So I work 3 stitches in my multicolored yarn, which is the white squares. And then on the 4th square, I'm going to make a stitch for my Ladder Back Jacquard, and I'm using these hair bands from Sally's Beauty Supply just because I want the Ladder Back Jacquard stitchers to be clearly identified so I don't have to worry about missing one and possibly working it as a regular stitch instead of working it like I would work the double knit, right? So here I am. And oh, also I wanted to tell you one more thing. When you're working on here on the inside of the hat, I wanted to show you. See all this black here? Well, that black is, when I was doing the Alaska hat, the first thing when you're doing color work, you have to ask, what is dominant? Which color is dominant in this picture? I mean, what do you want to stand out? Let me show you the color picture over here. You want the trees to stand out, right? So my trees are going to be in the black color. So I want my trees to come off my hat pattern and just be more dominant and kind of look like they're up front of the color work with the background color being pushed back into the background. So when I'm working stitches, in order to have my black trees come up, I need to take that black yarn and put it in my left hand. Well, when I was first knitting this, I had the multicolor in my left hand, and you see all these black strands. That was when I had the multicolor in my left hand, which would mean that the black tree gets pushed in and the multicolor stands out. So, and what that does is it'll kind of make it hard to identify the fact that it's actually a tree. So you want the black to stand out, so you need to put the black yarn in your left hand. So hopefully that was clear enough for you to understand. So now I've worked 3 stitches and I'm ready to do a lifted increase and actually mark that increase as one of my double knit stitches, so that every time I get to these big hair bands, I know that I have to treat it as if it were a double knit stitch. So here I am. I have my black yarn in my left hand, and I am going to grab this strand of yarn below the next stitch and stick that up on my needle. Now I'm going to place a stitch marker, and I'm going to just go ahead and knit that stitch. Okay, then I'm going to place another stitch marker, and I have that ladder back stitch is marked. Now I'm going to go ahead on here and knit these 2 white stitches here. Okay, there. So now that I've done that, then I'm going to work across my chart until I get to the next spot where I'll be on the beginning, because when I repeat these, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeats, because we have 144 stitches on our needles. So anyway, here I go. I have the 2 white ones. Then I'm going to be going with 2 black, and then I will go with my multi, and then a black, and then 3 whites or multis. 1, 2, 3, and a black, and 2 multi or white squares. Okay. Then we have a black and a white and 3 of the black ones. This round is pretty good because it doesn't have huge stretches in between each stitch. So I have 4 stitches left, and it should be a white, a black, and 2 whites. My whites are multi, right? There you go. So now I'm ready for the next one. Now I need to make sure and point out to you when you're doing these stitches, it is very important where you place your yarn when you're doing the Ladder Back Jacquard stitch. So what I'm gonna do, because I have 3 more of the multicolored, I'm just going to insert my needle and bring the black up and over so I can just interlock that there. So you can use more than one technique at a time, and it works just beautifully. So the first thing I'm going to do, here I am ready to make another stitch. I want to grab a little place marker, and then I am going to put this up on my needle. And you need to make sure that your yarns are in the correct position. So when I make my stitch, I'm just going to do a knit, and then I'm going to bring that back and place another marker, so that's marked on both sides, and then I am going to go ahead and work those 2 stitches, and then I will go ahead and work 2 black and the multi and black, 1, 2, 3, making sure, when you're doing your color work, make sure that you're always sliding these stitches to the right. So you want to have the floats in back to be nice and loose so you don't get that bunched up look, because there's nothing worse than having color work done and it looks permanently bunched, and no matter how much you block it, you can't get that bunchiness out of the appearance of it. It just stays there. If the floats are too tight, you just can't fix that. So sometimes when you're first learning, that happens, and you'll get better with more practice. But yeah, it's always try to get those stitches sliding to the right so that when you're knitting the next stitch, you're not pulling your work too tight. That is not good. So here I am at a light colored, a black, and 2 whites. Okay. All right. Now here I am at the beginning of the round, and I know that because I put that nice little stitch marker there, and I can't accidentally go and continue knitting on this round 16. We don't want to do that because it just means that you're going to have to go backwards, which is not a good plan. It just takes too much time. So here I am. I'm going to work the first 3 stitches, and then I will show you how you work this stitch. Now, Suzanne Bryan and the Sockmatician have really good YouTube videos on this actual technique, and those were the ones that I was looking on when I first saw it, because I'm like, this is so cool. And so what I'm going to do is, when I have this stitch here, I'm going to go ahead and take that stitch, both yarns in the front, and I'm going to purl it, just like double knitting. Isn't that cool? That's so cool. I just love it. Okay. And then I am going to work 3 more stitches. Okay. And that's all you do when you do the Ladder Back Jacquard. It's just like double knitting. So you remember how all you guys learned how to do double knitting? Well, guess what? You can use it in more than one way. And it's going to start developing these ladders up here. Now, I noticed that when Suzanne Bryant did hers, she did hers in net stitches, And the sockmatician did them in purl stitches. So you would have either a purl bump in back or a knit stitch in back, depending on what you did. I don't think it really matters because it's the back of your work. I just think it does matter which way you place your yarns when you're doing double knitting. So making sure those yarns are either all in the front or, so that you can knit and or purl, depending on what you do. So this is a fantastic little technique to deal with floats. And you can see right here when I just marked mine, I just found places. And the way that I decided to do this is I tried to make it kind of even. And then I thought maybe up here, I might have to somewhere in here do a float in here somewhere with these to make it so that I have my strands aren't too wide there. But I haven't gotten up that far, so I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do. And you can see that I did regular interlocking down here, and then I'm doing the Jacquard technique up here, where I have huge spaces of long runs of the same color of the stitch. So you can in here, this person did most of their color work in the Jacquard, but you do not have to do it. You don't have to do it. You can mix the two different techniques and get some nice results. So I will show you what my finished project looks like when I come back this next Tuesday. But I love the yarn so far, and I love the techniques. Do you see how pretty it is?
It's hard to see it actually.
Can you see it at all? I'm trying to pull it out so they can see. It's not been blocked yet, so you can't see it quite as much. And also, because I used a sport weight yarn, I did do another little thing. I cast on with 136 stitches, and I used a number 3 needle throughout. And then when I got to my first solid black row, because you do like 2 rows in black before you actually begin the, it's the first 2 rows of the chart are in black. So what I did on the first row, see right here, it's 2 rows in black. And what I did is increase the stitch count to 144 before I went ahead and began my color work. So you can do that when you're doing and for me, I know that this, in order for a hat to fit me, it has to be about 8.5 inches wide across the brim. If it's much over 9 inches, it's too big for my head. So I kind of know that already. So I was able to make a very educated guess on what my stitches would be, and using the little bit thicker sport weight yarn instead of using the fingering weight that it calls for, because I wanted to use Stark 6. It had the pretty lovely colorways. Plus, using a little bit thicker yarn, I was able to knit it just a little bit faster because I had a few less stitches. So that's always good. Speed is always nice for me. So you guys, don't forget, as we're going along, to vote to let us know which color we should give out for this next week. Hey, do any of you guys have problems knitting with black yarn? You should have seen me last night. My husband was cooking dinner for me, and I was knitting the ribbing, and I couldn't believe how many times I flubbed it up. I had to keep fixing it as I went along. But the good thing is, because I know how to ladder all the way down to the cast on edge, I can do it very quickly. So it was totally cool. But I guess using these are carbon needles, which are kind of dark on the upper. Do you see how they're kind of dark? And then the black yarn is probably not advisable. It would be better if you had either this lighter color metal, or maybe if you were using wood, to have that light blonde colored wood or something like that. It would be easier to see. But anyway.
So they're going to vote?
Yeah, so the voting for today is going to be for the multicolorway, which is Aniversario or black, and Dos Tiras. This is really nice yarn. I'm really liking it. I don't often, a lot of times they do 100% baby alpaca yarn, but this one's a 50-50 blend of baby alpaca and merino. And I like it. I'm enjoying it. So let's look and see who our winner was for this last week. So for this last week was Rosina Cardone Eppolito.
think so.
Ippolito, congratulations. You won some yarn. So Rosina, you need to get in touch with us and we can send your yarn out in the mail. Maybe you can try making the placemats with this Pima 100. It is a fantastic yarn and I love the colorways that you guys chose. Good job. That's totally fantastic.
We had a bunch of people from Alaska join us.
Oh, you did? Oh, awesome. Oh, so nice to have all of you with us. And if you haven't checked out the Alaska hat yet, you should. It's totally fantastic and beautiful. And I'm loving mine with this beautiful Stark 6 and the Dos Tierras. It's making a really nice hat. And unblocked, my hat is about 8.5 inches wide at the bottom and easily stretches. I mean, it easily stretches up to 10 inches. It is gonna, you could see how stretchy and bouncy this yarn is gonna be. Totally beautiful. And so anyway, I'm really, really enjoying that. So make sure you hold your yarn in your left hand so that your trees stand out. And if you haven't seen the Ladder Back Jacquard, a great YouTube videos, and we'll also be posting a blog on it. But I really enjoy the Sockmatician, and Suzanne Bryant does a great job with her description of the Ladder Back Jacquard too. If you wanted to take a look at that, that's fantastic. So for this next week, I was thinking that I would maybe do a, here I go again. How do you pronounce that? You know how you put the hood over your head, balaclava? Oh, baklava. It reminds me of the dessert. Why can I not remember?
Baklava is a dessert. It's something else.
Yeah, I think it's balaclava or something like that. Anyways, I was thinking about doing one of those hoods because I saw a new pattern that I quite enjoyed. So I might be doing that, but I'm going to finish my hat first. So you can see that next week too. I'm actually doing all these things. I'm thinking I'll have enough yarn left that I might be able to do a pair of either mittens or mitts to match. And so I'm going to take a look at that and see what I can do. But you guys have a great week and I will see you next Tuesday.